How does a person actually learn traditional Kapampangan cooking? Is it from a recipe or from helping and watching older family members at home? Hello, we are Group 6 and our study is titled An Exploratory Study on the Decline of Kapampangan Culinary Heritage Among Youth. The goal of this study is to understand how Kapampangan youth experience home cooking and how this affects the passing down of traditional Kapampangan culinary knowledge. For many Kapampangans before, cooking was learned through everyday experience or everyday practice in the kitchen. Today, this happens less often as many youths prefer foods that are quicker and easier to prepare. Because of this, traditional cooking knowledge is not passed on as much as before. Through this study, we hope to highlight the importance of keeping Kapampangan culinary traditions alive for future generations. Traditional Kapampangan cooking has mostly been learned inside the home. Instead of written recipes, knowledge is passed on through experience, observation, and guidance from older family members. Parents and grandparents play an important role because they are the ones who know how traditional dishes are prepared. Youth usually learn by being involved in small tasks such as preparing ingredients, watching how food is cooked, or assisting during family meals. These activities help them slowly develop cooking skills and familiarity with traditional dishes. However, this process has changed over time. Many households now rely on convenience food because of busy schedules and limited time for cooking. As a result, home cooking happens less often and youth have fewer chances to learn traditional Kapampangan cooking. This affects how culinary knowledge is transferred within families.
Kalyugan et al. 2021 state that the home is the main space where Kapampangan cooking knowledge is transmitted. However, limited youth participation in traditional cooking has reduced opportunities for this knowledge to be passed down. Many Kapampangan youth now prefer convenience and ready-made food because of the busy schedule and modern lifestyle. This reduces their participation in home cooking, limiting opportunities for elders to pass down traditional recipes and cooking techniques. Over time, this contributes to the gradual decline of the Kapampangan culinary heritage. This concern is important because traditional cooking is more than just a food preparation. It carries culture, values, family history, and social connections. Without the involvement of younger generation, there is a risk that this tradition may eventually be forgotten. Because fewer Kapampangan youth are involved in traditional home cooking, this study aims to understand the reason behind this decline and its effect of the transmission of Kapampangan culinary knowledge. To do this study will be guided by the following question. First is, to what extent do modern lifestyle, such as busy schedules and reliance on convenient food, contribute to the decline of traditional Kapampangan cooking skills among youth of 16 to 30? Second is, which factor influence Kapampangan youth's preference for quick and convenient food options? And the last one is, what is the relationship between the level of youth participation in home cooking and the transmission of Kapampangan culinary knowledge?
This framework shows that the older generation is the main source of traditional Kapampangan cooking knowledge. They pass down skills, techniques, and recipes that are part of our culture and heritage. When youth are less involved in home cooking, this knowledge is transferred less often. This leads to lower interest in traditional dishes and fewer cooking skills among young Kapampangans. As a result, the decline of young participation contributes to the loss of Kapampangan culinary heritage. It puts traditional cooking practices at risk and makes it harder for future generations to learn and appreciate these traditions.
This study uses a qualitative research design to examine the involvement of Kapampangan youth in traditional Kapampangan cooking and its impact on the transmission of culinary heritage. A quantitative approach is appropriate because it allows for the systematic measurement of behaviors, preferences, and interactions, giving us data that can be analyzed statistically. To collect this data, the study uses survey questionnaires. These surveys measures three main things: the level of youth involvement in home cooking, their preference for convenience or ready-made foods, and their interactions with older family members during food preparation. Using this approach, the researchers can determine how lifestyle changes and food preferences may influence the preservation or decline of traditional Kapampangan culinary knowledge.
Hello everyone! In this part of the study, I will explain who is the participant and how they were selected. The participants of this quantitative research are Kapampangan youth aged 16 to 30 years old who are currently living in Pampanga. This age group was chosen because they are the ones most affected by modern lifestyle change, such as fast food consumption, busy schedules, and the growing preference for convenience foods. This change may affect how traditional Kapampangan cooking knowledge is passed on the next generation. To select the respondent, the study used purposive sampling. This means that the researcher intentionally chose participants who met specific criteria. These criteria include: first, they must be Kapampangan. Second, they must be between 16 to 30 years old. And third, they should have exposure to household food practices. This sampling method was appropriate because it ensured that respondents had relevant experience and reliable data about their involvements, traditional cooking, and their preference for convenience foods. Next, let's talk about the research instrument used in this study. The researcher used a structured survey questionnaire as the main research instrument. This questionnaire was carefully developed based on the related literature and aligned with the objectives of the study to make sure that the questionnaire valid and relevant. The questionnaire has three main parts. Part 1 focuses on the demographic profile of the respondent. This includes their age, gender, and level of involvement in home cooking. Part 2 measure the respondent experience with traditional Kapampangan cooking. These parts ask about how often they participate in family cooking, their exposure to traditional recipes, and their interaction with older family members during food preparation. Part 3 examine the respondent preference for convenience or ready-made foods. It also looks at their perception on how this food choice may affect the transmission of Kapampangan culinary knowledge. Overall, this research instrument helped the researcher gather clear and organized data to better understand the current situation of Kapampangan youth and traditional cooking practices.
This study used a survey to collect data. The researchers prepared clear questions and asked permission from the respondents before giving the surveys. Participation was voluntary and all the answers were kept private. The survey was given to Kapampangan youth aged 16 to 30. The responses were checked and organized. The data were analyzed by grouping and counting the answers. The result showed that lifestyle changes affect traditional Kapampangan cooking. Ethical guidelines were followed to ensure voluntary participation, anonymity, confidentiality, and no harm to the respondents.